I would not have drafted Caleb Williams with the #1 pick in yesterday's NFL draft by the Chicago Bears if my life depended on it. Michael McLean, brassballsvideos.com. I am a former professional hockey coach, amateur championship hockey coach, turned 8-figure entrepreneur. This has been fascinating to watch over the last year. You have the once glorious Chicago Bears, amazing city, amazing sports town, and a franchise their fan base certainly deserve a lot better than they've received in the last several years. But you got the #1 pick. And you've got, admittedly, an incredible and special talent. I mean, Caleb Williams has physically all the tools. I mean, he can throw the ball, he can run the ball, he can make plays. He's got a touch of almost even a Patrick Mahomes in him, where he can make something out of nothing. So there's no question that this young man is by far the most talented quarterback player in the draft. So it's understandable that the Bears look at this and say, this is a generational talent. We can't pass this up. We got to draft this kid. We can't trade this kid because, you know, they're not willing to stick their necks out there if he becomes, you know, the next Tom Brady, or he becomes the next Patrick Mahomes, or in that sphere of ability and winning. So they literally took the easy way out. And they took the first pick and they used it on this player. And, you know, I have a confession. Like, I don't have a dog in this race, but I've got 31 years of hiring people. I've got 20 plus years of recruiting young athletes, a lot of athletes that are the age of Caleb Williams. So I've got 3 decades of experience when it comes to who do you hire, who do you draft, who do you recruit, who do you add to your team to build a championship culture. It's not just about the most talented players. I mean, that rarely results in teams winning Super Bowls, World Series, Stanley Cups, national championships. The issue I have here with this young player is not about talent. I mean, clearly he's got incredible athletic ability. But my question when it comes to this player is the mental maturity and the coachability. So I'll give you a couple of stories. So whenever I'm recruiting people over the last 31 years to work with me, employees, managers, receptionists, salespeople, service people, I always make applicants to work in any of my companies. I was in the insurance business, the barbershop business, the coaching business, the consulting business. But I've always made these people that apply jump through hoops. And what I mean by jumping through hoops is I make them prove to me that they can listen, they can pay attention, and most importantly, I make them prove to me through my application process that they're coachable. I had a system in my insurance agency, a playbook that I ran every day. I had systems in my barbershop and a playbook that we ran every day. In my coaching and consulting business now, I have a playbook that we run every day, systems, procedures, a way that You know, we run our company every day. We don't freelance. This is how we answer the phones. This is how we reply to emails. This is how we shoot videos. This is how we handle complaints. We have a championship playbook that we run every day. And I've always been like that in business. Didn't matter if it was window washing or the restaurant business. We have a playbook, just like a football team, that we run every day. So the most critical thing is not to attract the most skilled salesperson. That's great if you can. It's not about having the most skilled or talented person. It's rarely about that. But my experience over 31 years recruiting employees, staff members, is if they can't jump through these hoops, if they can't read, if they can't follow directions to even apply for the job, they're not coachable and they can't run the playbook. They're not willing to run the playbook. So what good is an employee, a manager, a staff member, or a hockey, football player, basketball player if they won't run the playbook? If they're not coachable and they won't run the playbook. So this is the reason that I set up a hiring system in the last 20 years. I've used it where a person has to do this, this, and this to even apply for a job with one of my companies. And admittedly, this system that they had to go through to become a receptionist, a service person, a salesperson, whatever it was, it literally eliminated 97% of people. 97% of applicants, we just took the resumes and we just tossed them in the trash. And the reason we took 97% of these resumes and tossed them in the trash is because these 97% didn't do what they were told when they applied. They didn't provide references. They didn't mail it to the proper address. They didn't write the letter that was required. In other words, they proved, without me wasting any time with them, that they can't read, they're not willing to pay attention, and they're not coachable. So why the hell would I hire a receptionist or a service person or a salesperson who's not going to read, they're not going to pay attention, and they're not coachable? Because that just neuters my program. It just neuters our playbook. We have a very specific way for servicing people, for selling, for marketing, for advertising. Well, guess what? I need people that are coachable to run that playbook. And when I was coaching pro hockey and amateur hockey, it was no different. Like, we were in situations many times where we passed on the most talented player available. We might be picking 5th overall or 15th overall. But I have to admit that rarely did we take the most talented player. And the reason we didn't take the most talented player is after interviewing these young men, interviewing their parents, their mom and dad, I realized that they weren't coachable. I realized that kids rarely get better after the application. Employees rarely get better. So if you think about it like this, and it applies to an NFL first-round pick, this guy is showing you his best right now. He, like an applicant for your business or recruiting any player, is on his best behavior. Like, he's putting his best foot forward. When somebody applied for my insurance agency or my barber shop, and you interview them and they send in their resume and all that stuff, you're seeing them at their best. It ain't going to get better. It's not like you're going to, it's not like it's going to improve. They're on their best behavior. And that's what my golden gut tells me about this kid, is there's all kinds of red flags There's all kinds of tells here that if I'm the general manager or I'm the owner of the Bears or I'm the head coach, months ago I'm looking at this and saying, you know what? We already have the quarterback we need. And of course, I'm talking about Justin Fields. What I love about that kid is the second half of last season, he's got the grit, he's got the mental toughness, he's got the physical toughness, he's improving, he's got an outstanding work ethic, and by all accounts, the kid is super coachable. He's got the ability, he's got some weaknesses he needs to work on. He has to work on his ability to read defenses. Who doesn't? But here's the thing, if I'm an offensive coordinator or I'm a head coach, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, we got a kid here who's a top 1% talent. We've already invested a couple of years into him. You can't get anything in a trade. And he's coachable. He's mentally tough. He's got some grit. He's got some stick-to-itness. And he's coachable. And before they fucked it all up, he wanted to be a Bear. And he wants to win Super Bowls, so he's willing to put in the work. So you had the guy. You had the guy. But instead, like they say in the hockey business, you end up trading him for a pail of pucks, a bag of pucks. You get nothing for this blue chip prospect that you drafted, plus all the time and energy into him, and you've got nothing. You got next to nothing. And now in 2024, with the first round pick, you're starting all over again. You're starting all over again. And I don't care if Caleb Williams is the second coming of Patrick Mahomes. You're 3 to 4 years away if this works out from that kid making you a serious Super Bowl contender. And that's what it's all about, right? It's not about endorsements. It's not about publicity. It's not about being on Monday Night Football. It's about winning Super Bowls. If you're a Tom Brady mindset kind of quarterback kind of player, all he cared about was winning. 7 Super Bowls. He didn't give a shit about endorsements. He didn't care about who else was. It was all about winning. His number one thing was his number one thing. So if I'm an owner or a coach or an offensive coordinator, and I'm working with a guy like Brady or a guy like Michael Jordan or a guy like Sidney Crosby or a guy like the best of the best, sure they've got lots of talent, but they're coachable. They're coachable. There's none of this me, which are the red flags all around this kid. This kid isn't special in that way. I think the secret in any franchise, any college, the NHL, the NBA, the NFL, even Major League Baseball, is over the next generation, is you've got to use a fine-tooth comb. You got to test these young players, these young people, and you got to somehow find the 1% of the 1% of the 1% that are talented and coachable. And trust me, there's not many of them. But if you can find that quarterback, that linebacker, that offensive lineman, the receptionist, the salesperson, the service person, the market, whoever it is, and they've got some solid talent, but they're willing to develop their talent because they got the work ethic, but they're coachable. They'll run your playbook. So this kid's going to make or break this new head coach in Chicago who, from all accounts, I have a client who has him as an insurance client. So I'm familiar with the new head coach in Chicago, and by all accounts, the guy's an incredible worker, an incredible high character leader. But he's going to have his hands full with this kid because this kid has surrounded himself with people that are going to distract him from the main thing. Another thing that I like to hear from, from a top recruit is when they talk about winning. I'm coming to Alabama because I want to win national championships. Why do you think Saban packed it in? He packed it in because the last couple of recruiting classes, the last couple of years with the NIL program, he's sitting there at the kitchen table with these blue chip recruits, and the only two things they care about is, number one, how much am I going to play without earning it? And number two, how much money can I make playing for you? So it went completely from, I hope that I can play at Alabama, I hope I can earn it, I hope I have the privilege of playing at this amazing school for this Hall of Fame coach, to what can you do for me? How much am I going to be guaranteed to play? Saban said this. And number two, how much money can I make? Me. And admittedly, my generation, the worst generation of parents ever, the worst. My generation of parents, cupcakes raising snowflakes. That's it right there. Cupcake parents, my generation, raising snowflakes. So even when you have a top talent like a guy like this, you got to take a hard line look at how important is winning Super Bowls down the road for this guy. And is he coachable? And if you can't say, if your scouts, if your coordinators, if you know your personal interviews with this player, I don't give a shit if he's the next Wayne Gretzky or if he's the next Joe Namath. If he's not open to coaching, if he's not open to putting in the 12 and 14 hours that a Tom Brady put in, or a Sidney Crosby puts in, or a Connor McDavid puts in, then what are we doing anyways? And here's the flip side of this, is if you had decided that, you know what, we had the guy in Fields, we're going to stick to that development, he's a guy who can take us where we need to go. And if he's not the guy, you can look somewhere else. But you got to give the kid a chance. And he's coachable. He's coachable, and he's tough, and he wants to win championship rings. Then you had an opportunity to take what I always call overrated assets. Caleb Williams is an overrated asset. He has to be, because of all the publicity that comes with him. He's the new shiny object in the NFL. So you take this new shiny object that all the teams have fallen in love with, especially the bad franchises, and you put him out there knowing that Fields is your guy, and you literally can stack your cupboard like Jimmy Johnson did with Herschel Walker, where you take this overrated asset and you dangle it out there to teams that don't know any better. They fall in love with the ability. They don't take into account the guy isn't fucking coachable and that he doesn't give a shit about his team or his teammates. And they overpay because they gotta get this guy. And even if he turns out to be the next coming, they've decimated their team. And that's what the Vikings did with Herschel Walker. And Jimmy knew it. He literally filled the cupboard with draft picks, drafted the right players. That was the most important part. Picks are only good if you draft the right players. But this could have been a repeat of the Dallas Cowboys from worst to first. And Jimmy had a lot worse situation with Jerry Jones buying the team. The Cowboys had 2 back-to-back 1-15 seasons. Jimmy goes in there. He's like, he goes, my University of Miami team could beat these guys. And he said to himself one day out on a run with his coaches after that 1-15 season again, and he said, you know, how can we speed this process up? This is killing me. We don't have the players. And that's when they came up with the idea of trading their most overrated asset. That's business right there. That's a GM's job right there. That's what asset do you have that's overrated? What shiny object do you have that can speed up the process and load the cupboard with the players you really need to win? Offensive linemen, defensive linemen, specialty team playmakers, this kind of stuff. And the opportunity was there for the Bears, but they didn't have the balls to do it. They never even thought about it. It'd be too controversial. So they go all in with this kid, and it better work out. Jimmy traded Herschel Walker for all of these picks, and all of these picks became Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, plus a whole bunch of, guys that you win with. The linemen, the defensive specialists, all of these guys that you can't win without. And then what did Jimmy end up having? He ended up picking Troy Aikman, who was what? High character, high integrity, and coachable. Troy Aikman was coachable. Emmitt Smith was coachable. Michael Irvin was coachable. And this just goes to show you that a person's character is more important than their talent. When we won our last hockey championship in 2019, and we beat the perennial powerhouse City team, it was white collar versus blue collar. It literally was white collar versus blue collar. We were supposed to lose in 4 games. We were supposed to be swept. It wasn't even supposed to be a contest. But we swept them with a blue collar team. We had lots of talent. We had lots of grit, but we had character. And our best players, which is the same as quarterbacking in football, this guy is going to be the face of your franchise regardless. That's how important your MVP has to be your quarterback. That's just the way it is. So when you draft a kid like this, he's going to be the culture of your team. He's going to be the face of your franchise, and he's going to be the leader or the non-leader. So you better get that pick right. You better get that pick right, because there's no getting away from it. When you're the quarterback of an NFL team, you are the face of the team. You are the locker room. So what kind of work ethic is this guy going to bring? What's he going to bring to the locker room? What's he going to bring to the huddle? What's he going to bring? And he's going to be the face of the franchise off the field as well. Is this a guy like a Tom Brady or even a Josh Allen, where people are going to say, you know what? That guy represents our city, represents our franchise. That's who we want as our leader. And time will tell. Time will tell. But boy, oh boy, when I think of the great talents, whether it's a Connor McDavid, whether it's a Sidney Crosby, for God's sakes, Wayne Gretzky was and Mark Messier, those guys were coachable. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not coachable and you don't give a shit about winning, or at least it's not number one, it ain't going to happen. Michael Jordan may be the most talented basketball player in history. The Larry Birds of the world, those guys, they were all coachable as well. Jordan actually gave his head coach shit one time when he didn't check his room for curfew. Can you imagine? The greatest of all time, and he finds out that they didn't check his room for curfew. So he goes to his coach the next day and he said, "What happened? You checked curfew, but you didn't check my room." "Oh, well, you're Michael." He goes, No, I'm not. He goes, "I'm part of this team like everybody else, and I want to be treated as part of this team." That's my favorite Michael Jordan story. Not the other stuff about, you know, this and that. I mean, this guy was the guy you wanted leading your franchise. And all of these teams, these top picks, they're going to the worst team, right? You're going to a dismal franchise. You're going to a shit show or a dumpster style. That's just the way it is. If you're number one pick in the NFL or you're the number one pick in the NHL or the NBA, you're going to the bottom of the barrel. So it's more critical than ever, because you're going to lose for a handful of years at least, that you pick that high character, high integrity, high talent player, but they got to have both. Just physical, natural skill is not going to be enough to switch that culture from losing to winning. See, that's what Jordan did. That's what Sidney Crosby did. That's what Tom Brady did. And that's what the greats do. They switch a losing culture into a championship culture. And it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it took a handful of years for Troy Aikman to do that, for Emmett to do that, for Michael Irvin to do that, even with a coach like Jimmy Johnson. So I don't even know where I'm going with this anymore, other than if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur like me, you need a hiring system no different than an NFL team, so that, you know what, you don't get tricked or mesmerized by the shiny object or the too good to be true. And the other thing you got to trust as the CEO and the founder, you, is I don't care how many people used to interview my people. I would do the final interview, which was about the fourth or fifth interview. And you know what I did for those interviews when I was hiring anybody before I let them anywhere near my world? Is I used the old Steve Jobs trick. And they show up, they're ready for the final interview, they're nervous, they got their references, and I would say, put on your coat, we're going for a walk. That's what Steve Jobs did. Because when you go for a long walk outside in nature, it's the ultimate BS eliminator. All the cliches, all the political stuff, it all goes out the door. Especially when you're walking and talking, walking and talking, walking and talking. You're constantly pattern interrupting the person, and that's what Jobs did. He wanted to get to know the person. You can't do that over a desk. He would take them for an hour walk, a 2-hour walk. You're going to be spending 16 hours a day with this young player. You're going to be spending 10 hours a day with this employee. You better get to know them at that level. And that's exactly what I would do. I would just walk for an hour. They're out there. I'm asking them questions about their family. I'm asking them questions about their greatest challenges, their greatest weaknesses, their greatest losses, their greatest adversity. I'm asking them about personal heroes, the best books they read. What books are you reading now? What do you like? What do you not like? And of course, my famous, what could I say or do that would offend you so much that you would resign if you actually worked here? That's a deal breaker right there. What would I do, or what could I do that would offend you so much that you would resign? I'm testing their alligator skin, right? But it's walk and talk, walk and talk. So I love the Bears. I love the city of Chicago. This head coach, I hope they do incredibly well. I hope I'm wrong about this young man. But my golden gut and my intuition, there's some tells there. Crying after a mid-season loss. You know when the true cleaners cry? Michael Jordan used to cry once a year when he had that championship trophy in his hands. He cried when he won. Sidney Crosby won 3 Stanley Cups so far. He cries when he wins. There's no crying in football. There's no crying in hockey. There shouldn't be any crying in basketball. You cry when you win. When I won the Barclay Cup, I shed a tear for the first time since I was seven years old. Are you kidding me? Up until that point, it was just suffering until you get there. But all this other stuff, you know, crying after, that's a show. That shows the, you know, that's a tell to me. You know, you cry after a mid-season loss, and what kind of leadership is that? Is that the guy is that the king that's going to take you to the Super Bowl? Do you know how hard it is to win a Super Bowl? Literally, like, just think about that. It takes decades. It takes 18-hour days. It takes the perfect coaching, the perfect coordinators. You got to have luck on your side. You got to have preparation on your side. And then you still only have a chance. And you got to beat, you know, there's always the Mahomes. There's always the Bradys of their generation. There's always those guys right in the way. So to have to struggle every day with a key person who's not coachable, oh, life is too short. Sports is too short. I used to jettison those guys the hell out of my world. If I inherited one of them, I got rid of them. I certainly never drafted any of them. I certainly wanted nothing to do with them because I understood, man, winning is so hard. Winning is so damn hard that if I don't have a high-quality human being across from me, it's humanity before talent. I used to remind myself that all the time. My dad would say that quite a bit. When we trade for a player or we're about to draft a player, my dad would constantly remind me, he's like, Michael, they're all talented. He said, how's the humanity aspect? What kind of young man is he? What kind of a friend is he? What kind of a brother is he? What kind of a teammate is he? What does he give a shit about the fans? Does he give a shit about the community? Does he give a shit about winning? Humanity over talent. There's talent everywhere. And sure, this guy's got the most. But I'm telling you right now, if you don't have talent with humanity, with grit, with toughness, with mental toughness, with selflessness, with a championship work ethic, and, you know, coachability, I don't care how talented your salesperson is, or your receptionist, or a business partner, or a quarterback, or a linebacker. If they're not coachable, run. And you know what? It's an overrated asset that you can put on sale, and you can literally stock your cupboard with the real type of players it takes to win a Super Bowl, or a Stanley Cup, or an NBA title, or a national championship. Surround yourself with high character, high integrity people, and remember my dad's rule, humanity over talent. If you get both, that's perfect, but humanity with talent. Humanity with talent, and that will take you where you need to go. You can download a copy of my book for free. The link is below. The title of the book is To Repel the Cupcakes and Snowflakes and Poodles, 5 Ways to Unfuck Your Life in the Next 30 Days. Admittedly, we all need to unfuck our lives from time to time. This 22-page book will help you do that. It's free. Just click on the link below. You put in your email. I email it to you within 5 minutes. Nothing to buy. It's my gift to you. Share it with friends, print it off, read it. I don't care what you do with it, but it's the 5 things I've learned over the last 30 years that have moved the needle the most for me. 5 ways to unfuck your life in the next 30 days. Click on the link below or go to brassballsvideos.com. That's it. I hope I'm wrong about this. I don't have a dog in this race. But if I did have a dog in this race, I would be ruled by my golden gut and my dad's rule of humanity over massive raw talent. Surround yourself with outstanding people first. 2 words that changed my life, 2 words that'll change yours. Be relentless.